Hello, everybody. My name is Larry Lamb. I'm a former teacher in Kettering, and counselor in Kettering, and I am going to conduct this year's Hall of Fame interviews. Over the years, thousands of dedicated volunteers have contributed to the success of Fairmont Athletics. Many have unselfishly given hundreds of hours to the athletic program. A handful have gone so far over and above the call of duty that their contributions cannot be ignored by the Fairmont Athletic Hall of Fame. I'm sitting down with one of those people right now, Mr. Dave Nogle. Dave has been a booster volunteer since 1991. Always eager to volunteer, he has held several leadership, management, and support roles over a span of 32 years. As Hall of Fame Committee Chairperson Jim Seawee says, no task is too small or too big for Dave. Here are a few of Dave's contributions over the years. First, he solicited ads for fall and winter sports for 14 years. He organized the girls and boys basketball alumni nights. He managed Trent Arena and the Bird's Nest for 6 years. He came up with an equitable way of sharing phrase profits among the parent groups. He brought the Gus Macker basketball event to Fairmont, raising $15,000 for the boys and girls basketball programs, as well as the Trent Arena backboard upgrades. He was instrumental in negotiating the contract with Pepsi for booster concessions, and he served 9 years as boosters treasurer and 9 years as head of concessions. Dave's devotion in support of Fairmont Athletics is well known, as he can be seen at most football and basketball games, many contests of other sports, and he appears to know most of the fans at those games. He joined the athletic department staff in 2016 as a site manager at Trent Arena and the soccer stadium. He also manages the press box during the football games and arranges food donations for game night dignitaries. I'm out of breath. Dave lives in Kettering with his wife Patty. They have 4 children, Tracy, Scott, Kelly, and Jenny, and 4 grandchildren, Gabby, Parker, Allie, and Avery. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you.
You're having a pretty good year, my friend. First, you are selected as Grand Marshal for the 2022 Holiday at Home festivities, which is a huge honor. And now you're being inducted into the Fairmont Athletic Hall of Fame, which is another huge honor. I guess people must like you, huh? Dave, how and why did you get started in Fairmont Athletic Boosters organization?
Well, first I've had a great love for basketball, number one, and athletics in general. My children got involved at a young age. One of my 2 daughters, Kelly, became a manager down in junior high for the football program and basketball, and it followed through the high school where she lettered as the manager for Tim Casey at the time when he was coaching. Following up 4 years later, my daughter Jenny started playing basketball in the 4th grade and followed it through, and also lettered for the varsity went before she graduated in 2000. So that part, as I think, as all parents do, it's just what you do. Your kids are involved, you get involved, and I've loved this community from day one, and every bits and parts of it I could. I like to be around it, and I've just enjoyed it, and it made it quite enjoyable. I always used to say it's the best. Back then it was $5, now it's $8. But it's the best $8 you could spend on a Friday night for entertainment, is go and see a bunch of young kids perform to their excellence.
I would agree. Football team, band, the whole
across the board
show is a great deal. Your list of contributions in serving the Firebird Athletic Department is incredible. You can be described as a guy who gets things done and makes things happen. Anytime you're given a job to do, everyone can be certain that that job is going to be done well. It will be done in a professional manner and it will be done with class. Let's talk about a few of those accomplishments. First, you did the job no one wants to do for 14 years, soliciting ads. Talk about that.
Well, as Jim knows, Jim Seawee and I worked together for many years, it was easy for me because sitting in the chair being the booster treasurer, I was in contact with all of our suppliers and sources. In my prior life, I mean, I've been 50 years I spent being a salesman, and I'd been with Tuffy Brooks for 25 years, and then I was with another company, Allison, as a traveling sales rep. So I could sit in an office chair and make a phone call with a fax machine and send out the copies of invoices and their ad from previous years and say, is this okay? We're going to do it again? And it would be. And it was, as I say, it was just a natural thing for me because it was just a continuation of what I was already doing in sales. So.
Not so much knocking on doors, but
no, it was
just general communication.
Right. Fortunately, when you know a few people in the business world, but again, many of them were our suppliers and people who were contributors to the program already. And
you know more than a few people, Dave.
Yeah.
You came up with a fair way to distribute phrase profits among different parent groups. Talk about that.
Well, I found, and I was one of them. For example, just take several different events. Some outstanding entertainer was going to be there and it would be packed. And people who worked that night, they were distributed their funds based upon that. Well, the next night there might be, or the time, there would be an event that was going on and it poured down rain. Well, the same amount of people, 14 people showed up to work and put their time in just as much as the people who had the sunny day. And it became.
So you're talking about running a booth at phrase events?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes. Well, they maintained a booth. Yes, we were primarily serving, and I felt that was unequitable. It wasn't fair for the people who put their time in, and just because it rained or some lack of attendance from people at the event, that they didn't get a fair share. So what I did was, I kept a running track with and cooperation with the phrase people. We kept track of all the different sports of the people that attended and worked. So it didn't matter whether it was rain or shine. So the total then at the end of the year, I counted up all the people from volleyball, for example, that how many people worked and how many people from basketball worked. I took the total amount of money that was being given to us, and usually it was pretty sizable, and each one of those people's work was a share. So then they had so many shares. Volleyball might have 30 shares for their people working, or football could have 35 shares, etc. And then so when I divided into the total shares, obviously into it, came out to how much each share was of value to, so everybody got an equitable share. If you put the time in, you got paid in a fair and equal amount.
The Pepsi contract for the concessions was huge, and you were part of that. You were treasurer for the boosters and managed the concessions for 9 years. That's a thankless job filled with headaches. You managed Trent Arena and the Bird's Nest for 6 years, another huge job. Now you're a site manager for the arena and soccer stadium, and you run the press box at Roush Stadium. The list goes on and on. Former athletic director Brian Donaher credits you with saving the booster organization from financial ruin. Walk us through that episode.
Well, that's a little bit of part of my acceptance speech is that I got a phone call one day, and I've known Brian since he was 15 years old, and we'd been involved at the YMCA with the basketball program there. Called me and said, I want you to take it on the job. He said, I need a booster treasurer. He says, I want you to come up here and take that job. I said, well, Brian, I'm not a finance guy. I said, I've been in sales, but I'm not an accountant type. He said, don't worry about that. He says, I'm a finance major. He says, if you make a mistake, he says, I know how to correct it. So needless to say, took on that job and overseeing it. And I think just putting in good business practices, I would have to say, and inventory controls and such were the primary function that I did right away. It was just what I carried over from doing in my own business life as I had done running, as I say, with Tuffy Brooks and such. And we had fortunate and things worked out well with the flying the hoops, for example, that we get that proceeds and many tournaments that were here. And needless to say, just keeping a sharp eye on it. And we had some change of personnel and some way we did things, and did a lot of record keeping as we went forward. And hence today we have I'm very proud of a very successful and program.
The numbers I have in front of me, in the first 9 months under your leadership, concession profits went from 2,700 to 51,000, and since then profits have exceeded $1 million, and the general fund, which was almost exhausted at the time you took over, became healthy enough to increase the number of booster scholarships from 6 to 10, and the amount of each scholarship from 600 to 1,000 per recipient. And plus the boosters underwrite all the funding for the Athletic Hall of Fame, so thanks for that. Dave, you're like Jack Nicholson at Lakers games and Spike Lee at Knicks games. It's rare that the Firebirds play a basketball game at the arena and you're not in your usual courtside seat. Surrounded by your legions of friends, until his death, your friend Jim Trent, the namesake of Trent Arena, was always by your side at the games. Talk about that relationship with Jim.
That's it. Choked me up now. He was a great friend. Jim was my road sidekick. We went, not only did we stay at home games, we went to all the away games. And both of us had the same heart specialist that we both had to go to, and about, watching your cholesterol and such. Well, when we went on our road games, we knew where every Frisch's Big Boy restaurant was. And we would go early. We'd go to Troy. We'd go to Cincinnati, or we'd go to Franklin. I could point them out and tell them to you. But we just loved that time. And I say, Jim and I, all the time that we were together, never had a disagreement. And we were either both pretty smart or both pretty stupid, because we both thought the same way. And we loved Kettering sports in general, but the basketball, boys and girls, we totally and thoroughly enjoyed it. And it got culminated with, we were fortunate enough that Jim was by my side in 2014 when we won the state championship. And to this day, that's one of our most memorable moments. So, yeah.
One of our favorite guys.
Yeah.
Jim was not only former superintendent, former board of education president, but he was also a member of the Hall of Fame committee. So we all got to know Jim and love Jim, and we all miss him. Dave, there has never been a bigger supporter of Fairmont athletics than you. Thousands of athletes and fans have benefited from your tireless dedication to making Fairmont athletics a first-class operation. I thank you for that. Thousands of other people thank you for that, and I'm proud to call you my friend.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.